Okay, hello. Thank you for stopping by and checking out this video. This is going to be an interesting one. There was some things that came up this past weekend, and I found myself in a bit of a meditation after seeing what came up on the news. I was like, yeah, maybe it's time to talk about this once and for all, just sort of clear the air, get all of my thoughts out, and then put it out in the universe and let it go. You know, many years ago, I made a video that honestly should not have ever happened, called The Ode to Emma Watson, The Christ Sophia. And since then, there was, something of a fallout that took place, and I want to talk about all of that, hopefully reconcile some things for people who were following the story or who maybe came across it later on. In addition to that, there's a couple other things that I want to speak about regarding this subject. And it came up because this past weekend, I was checking out the news, and there was this trending story that said, Emma Watson has been banned from driving for 6 months due to an overabundance of speeding tickets. I thought, okay, that's interesting. And in addition to that, there was another story that was sort of trending at the top of this whole article thread that was called, "What's the point of Emma Watson?" Which I gotta say is probably like the stupidest question, or right up there in terms of the stupidest things that someone could possibly say. And I was like, yeah, I could probably comment on this too. So this video is going to be a bit of a reaction and response to all of it, as well as talking about some of the past mistakes that I made and hopefully clearing up the energy. But first, part of me is like, maybe I don't even need to comment on this. But like the other article that was trending, I was just like, this is so rude. What is the point of Emma Watson? And I was just thinking, like, how could I possibly respond to this? Imagine reducing a soul to a headline. You don't have to understand someone's purpose in order to have respect that they have one. The universe didn't spend 13 billion years evolving so that you could write an op-ed questioning someone's right to exist. What? So, I was looking at this article, just trying to get a picture of like, what's her point in the article? And she really didn't have one. Like, the whole thing was just framed to be mean. And I'm like, just look at this and you'll see what I mean. She wrote, "I'd love to see some of Watson's writing." And I say that in a caring way. Yeah, you do. Because she has always struck me as one of those clunkers who, for their own good and our own sanity, should be dissuaded from speaking unless reading from a script. And then she also said, "I doubt that Watson could ever return to acting. The striking thing about the Harry Potter movies is how uniformly bad the acting of the lead children was, in contrast to how good the adult actors were." Man alive. Wild that someone with a keyboard and a pulse could assign value to an entire human being. It must be exhausting playing God. She also wrote, and this is the last thing, "But look at the young Radcliffe and Watson and tell me with a straight face that they had star quality stamped on them. I've seen pairs of twice-used tea bags with more charisma." Oh my God, it's easy to mock someone's beginnings when you weren't living through the storm. Like, they were children, under global scrutiny, and they still carried worlds on their shoulders with grace. Maybe charisma isn't about sparkling on cue, but maybe it's about your soul growing under pressure, which, honestly, they have done beautifully. And the whole thing reminds me of this quote from Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the one who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming, but who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends themselves in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if they fail, at least they fail while daring greatly, so that their place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat." And I think that those cold and timid souls can be summed up beautifully by this Julie Burchill, who felt it in their heart or mind or just pure ego to write this article.
Oh, well, I think that I'm completely right about everything.
Get out of here. Nobody cares. Moving on, again, the heart of this video is to respond to something that I said a long time ago that I believe should never have been said. Many people have responded to this ode to Emma Watson, and honestly, it really didn't go well. It's interesting to look, like if you were to observe the back end of spirit science, all of our videos have a like to dislike ratio. And I gotta say, like 99% of our videos fall above the 90% ratio, and most of them are in the 98 to 99% likes. That's incredibly positive. The Christ Sophia video actually was my least performing video of all time, falling at a measly 70%, which honestly is still pretty good. Like if I got 70% in a test in high school, I'd be okay with that. But compared to everything else getting like 99, it's clear that this one didn't land as well. And I think there's a good reason for that. Everything that I said was based on a couple things. One, a very limited understanding of something that I was just starting to learn about at the time. And in addition to that, it also was influenced by a force within me that was not my own. You know, I made a video about this following up once that was called The Psychic Attack Anchor That Almost Destroyed Spirit Science. And in it, I described how one time when I went to an ayahuasca journey at Rhythmia, or I went to Rhythmia and did ayahuasca, I healed, I purged, it was like 4 days of battle with this evil force or entity or thing within me that I ended up calling a psychic attack anchor. And this thing was planted within me during a very difficult time way back in the day. And it was very subtle. The way that it worked was it would influence my thoughts and my actions by feeding me ideas that would lead to self-sabotage, along with a lot of negative reinforcing thoughts, I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, whatever, that ended up leading to me making a whole bunch of mistakes and saying some things that I should never have said that caused me a lot of problems later on. I don't want to get into all the details here, but I did make a public response on my website, spiritsciencecentral.com. If you're curious, you can scroll down and there's this article there published called Responding to Defamation. You can learn about it there, get the story, but honestly, like all of those things were influenced within me by this force that was not my own. And it took a lot of time for me to realize what had happened and the mistakes that I made. There's another aspect of this whole thing, which is playing the role or archetype of the Sacred Fool. It's actually why I ended up putting the Fool card back in Patch Tarot for Patch Tarot 3. And that card looks like this. The whole thing with the Sacred Fool is like, for all of us, we're all children of God, I like to say. We're all these innocent souls. We have that divine light within us, but we're wrapped in a shell of ego. And sometimes in life, we have to make these really big mistakes, do stupid things, act out, or say the wrong thing in order to learn what's true and what's real. And sometimes this comes with doing that in public and doing it or in front of others that we care about or love. And sometimes it causes a lot of friction and it causes some pain and some challenges. And hopefully, ideally, we can learn and grow from those experiences. And this is what I've come to realize about all of the mistakes that I've made in public, and also especially this Christ Sophia topic and conversation. So I want to talk about that now. Now, before I do, I think I want to call upon the magical ingredient of liquid courage. Now, a wise person once said,
you never know when you're going to need just a quick, straight glass of gin.
Oh, or amen. I don't have any gin with me in this moment, but what I do have is, which just turns out to be, what? No, it's a local cider. I live in the Okanagan Valley, which is like the wine and cider and fruit growing orchard capital of Canada. So this stuff is pretty good. Need? Maybe not, but want? Oh yes. Okay, where did this Emma Watson thing come from? What is this ode Christ Sophia thing about? And why did this happen? How did it affect me? And maybe her even. Like, I want to talk about all of it. In that original video, I spoke about how, I was processing something really heavy, really serious, and really traumatic that happened, in my life between 2013 and like 2016. And in the time following up that traumatic experience, I was doing everything that I could to process and reconcile and heal the painful things that had happened. So one of the things was I did a couple of private mushroom ceremonies on my own. And one of them, I just ended up laying down and closed my eyes and had some music going. And the next thing you know, like it was like this 4-hour window where out of nowhere, I was just like, I met Emma Watson in this visionary state and we were just talking. We talked for a really long time, like the whole thing. And I don't remember all the details of like what we talked about, but I just remember it being like a really meaningful journey. Now, I have to be very clear, and I might repeat this a couple times, but like I never asked for this. She was not even on my radar ever. Like, of course I knew about her from Harry Potter, and maybe I'd seen like Perks of Being a Wallflower or something, but like I hadn't taken any time to think about her beyond like actress, along with all of the other actors and actresses out there. You know, and I wasn't familiar with like her activism work. I didn't know about her speech at the UN. I didn't know about any of the things that she was really up to in the world. From that experience, I was like, okay, that's interesting. I don't know what that was about. And I let it go. You know, maybe a week later, I had another ceremony and there she was again. Now, time went on. I went through some big phases in my life and moved out of my parents because I just come back there for a couple months after my journey abroad. And I moved out, I got a place with a friend, and we ended up getting connected with Rhythmia, and I started doing these talks there. So I went to Rhythmia a couple times, and in a number of the ceremonies that I was in, she showed up again. And again, it was always like really meaningful and really beautiful. Honestly, if I was to re-express the whole Christ Sophia thing again today, what I would say is that we all have that soul light, the Christ consciousness, or the Kutastha Chaitanya, you know, the eternal spirit is nested within each of us. I kind of see it like the whole wave particle duality, like the cosmic spirit is like an indivisible unified field or a wave that exists transcendentally in the backdrop of creation underlying all things. It's the animating spirit that brings all things to life and makes us move. And then that wave is individualized kind of as a particle in each of us. And in my experiences, the way that I would describe it now is that I got to bear witness to her light, you know, which was really sparkly and really precious and really beautiful. And it helped bring out that light within me. By having that connection, it was like a sacred mirror or a divine reflection. And seeing that light within her brought it out in me. And the whole Christ Sophia thing came from, again, I was just starting to learn about like the nature of Christ consciousness. And I had learned about the term Christ Sophia, or just, you know, the nature of Sophia in the mythology and the idea, like it's kind of like the left brain and the right brain within us, or the mind and the heart within us, or the body and the soul within us. The whole Christ Sophia thing, like I didn't even understand it well enough or at all. And I just was like, oh my gosh, she's so bright, she's so luminous, and I want to talk about it. At the same time, the wanting to talk about it, I think was that there was that influence from the psychic attack anchor, because part of the expression in that was actually a rejection of this connection that I was feeling with her, and a rejection of myself. You see, I was really confused because I didn't know what it meant. And I was like, how are we connected? If at all, is this happening just within me? Is she having mystical experiences of me? I don't know. I never had it, and I never got any answer about that. And then I've also had people, you know, I've talked about it with some certain people, and I've had some expressions like, one, maybe it's a demon disguising itself as Emma to manipulate me or something like that. Or maybe I'm tapping into somehow the collective imagination of Emma, you know, because like the whole world is aware of her. She's one of the most popular and celebrated actresses on the whole planet right now anyways, or she was, you know, kind of taking a break right now, so other things are in the public. But like maybe I was connecting with this astral expression of her that actually had nothing to do with her. And again, maybe it's all just a message from my higher self, isolated and exclusive to me. And that's very possible. So this is a bit of the fun part, like why I'm calling this video The Paradox of Emma Watson, is because one, it's ironic and synchronistic that she has a product line with Prada called Paradox, but also I'm trying to hold a sort of a transcendental or quantum computing state of all of the possibilities while being attached to none. Normally, a bit can occupy 0 or 1 and is one or the other. But in quantum computing, that single bit can occupy both 0 and 1 at the same time, which is pretty cool to think about. So for me, I'm like, okay, it could be any of these things or some other thing that I don't understand, but I want to be open to all the possibilities and I don't want to be attached to any one of them. And as a part of that, kind of going back to why I made that video in the first place, I said it was a bit of a rejection of it because, like, straight up, I didn't have a lot of positive self-worth for a really long time. I've spoken about that before. But like, you know, she'd be in the news and she'd be doing these like amazing things. And I'm like, is there some sort of destiny for us here? Is there some sort of connection that we're supposed to explore? And if so, like, I don't think that I'm worthy of that. I tried for a while to make it stop. I prayed for it to stop because it was affecting me in you know, both positive but also negative ways. Like, I was really confused about what it meant. And it was kind of starting to affect my relationships. The thing is like, I would go deep into meditation. You know, I'm a very spiritual guy. I would meditate a lot. And sometimes I would go deep into the depths of my soul and she would be there. And I didn't know how to explain it. Again, I didn't ask for this. I never sought her out. I never tried to find her in a psychedelic trip. Like, it just happened to me. And as a result of that, I would end up in these relationships with people and then I would get stuck there because I'd be like, how can I give my heart to someone fully if there's already someone in there? And that ended up causing a lot of rifts in my relationships over time. And it is what it is. I'm not complaining about it, but part of that Christ Sophia video was attempting to negate it. I'm like, if it's not gonna stop in this way, maybe I can take an action to make it stop in another way. And so, you know, again, maybe this influence that was not right, I published that video and there was a lot of negative stuff that happened as a result. Let me give you an example. Let me pull this up here. So if you look up Jordan River spirit science, you know what? This is great. Wow. I'm not seeing it anymore. Hold on, let me go a little deeper. Should be in jail. Okay, well, this is great news. Okay, there's one, but this is a lot. It's not nearly as bad anymore. But here's one, you know, some guy said cringing at Spirit Science's Emma Watson video. But like, actually, I'm thrilled. I had no idea, but apparently it's gone. But like, for a while, there were videos on YouTube that were like, Jordan River should be in jail. And I swear they had like 500,000 views on it. And it was really awkward, you know, because people they saw the Emma Watson thing and they were like, this guy is obsessed. He's a mess. He should not be making videos. He's this pseudoscientist, insane person. And it was all kinds of awkward. And I feel like, especially if 500,000 people on multiple videos like this saw that response or reaction, I can see how that definitely affected my reputation in the world. So honestly, thrilled that that's not a thing anymore, for the most part. Like, I'm not seeing it. So that's great. But like, you know, I also really wondered if and how it might have affected her. You see, again, the thing is like, I have no evidence that she's even heard of spirit science, if she's ever seen the video that I made. Part of me like assumes so, because then after that happened, there was a wave of, again, I was still going arrhythmia and stuff. So I had these visions where like, she was really mad at me. And it was only like a year later, after I'd got rid of the psychic attack anchor, that I realized what kind of mistake that I'd made. I started to think maybe that actually could have affected her really poorly. And so I felt really guilty and really sorry for making that. And I didn't know what to do for a long time. And, you know, I had sent her some Instagram messages at one point. I like tried to make up for it and reach out to her. But of course, you know, Instagram, like, it would have ended up in her hidden message inbox, probably buried under thousands of other things. So it's doubtful that she ever saw those. I also did try to make a video at one point called "There Is No Christ, Sophia." But it was like a stepping stone in the reconciliation and healing process. It really didn't carry the energy like what I'm trying to do now and just being authentic. Like, it was kind of scripted. I had some people's feedback. It ended up, I just kind of made it unlisted because I was like, yeah, this isn't exactly what I want to say fully. But there were some good things in there too. Interestingly, actually, I realized this maybe a couple months ago. I was thinking about this at one point when I was working on the Mysteries of Christ and Sophia episode for the Spirit Science Christ Consciousness series. Because this was the place where I was like taking all of my actual understanding properly, you know, developed and matured, and like just put it out there. It had nothing to do with her, but it did have to do with that divine dance and the ancient stories between like Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, and the relationship between, as I mentioned, like within the hemispheres of our brain and body and everything like this. And I hit this point where I was like, wait a second, I'm the Christ Sophia. And it was funny because in some level we all are, you know, we all have that Christ energy, and then the body, like the Sophia energy or whatever. But there's this story of, you know, going back to the ancient Gnostic writings where Sophia represents the body disconnected from the soul, who descends down and having a material experience. And then in the story, she prays to Yeshua, and he comes and like heals her and restores her and everything like that. And I was like, wait a second, that's my experience, and probably a lot of people's too. I'm like, oh, okay, no. Turn it inside out, strike that, reverse it. I can see how, I've been through these states where I kind of was very in a fallen mindset, or very disconnected from my soul. And I prayed to Christ and to Yeshua, or to the divine. And there was even a time, actually a couple times, where Yeshua kind of came down and he spoke with me and lifted me up and helped me through whatever difficult time I was having. And I was just like, oh, yeah, okay, it's me. Cool. And, you know, I say this not to like point out like, oh, I'm some divine being, like sacred fool all the way. And maybe a bit of a magician, bit of a child, you know, we've got all the archetypes within us. But I say this to say that, you know, again, maybe in the humbling process for all of us, we've probably all been through those fallen, disconnected states. And in whatever way, through some divine connection, we are lifted back up to our higher state. And this is like the store of humanity. So I thought that was fun to mention. Now, you know, just a little bit of closure too on if she really did see that video and if it affected her personally and in a negative way. I can imagine maybe at the highest level or the lightest level, her response might have been something like this.
What an idiot.
And maybe on a more extreme level, she might have wanted to do this. And I wouldn't blame her in any regard or capacity. Yeah, I was really embarrassed. Still, like after all of it, you know, time went on and I really started to wonder, like, how did this happen? Why is this happening? Like, did someone cast a spell on me? Like, did I get slipped a, what's it called?
Mrs. Amortentia.
Yes. And wait, what does it do again?
The most powerful love potion in the world.
Exactly. So maybe that was the case. So with that said though, I really, really need to make this clear. Like, I know that there are like celebrity crushes out there, and there are obsessive fans, and there are crazy stalkers. But yeah, I need to stress that. Like, I'm really not a crazy fan. I'm just trying to navigate it to the best of my ability. In that, part of the reason I'm making this video isn't just because she was on the news, but because I'm actually seeking closure. Like, I want to put this out into the universe and just see what happens with it. I want to be able to, yeah, just kind of make sense of it. Like, I need to know. I need to know if this is just me or if she has ever had any mystical experiences with me. And wow, what a story. one way or another. But if it actually is true that she's experienced this too, like what a story. Like that's kind of amazing. It especially changes the game for humanity a little bit to say like what's possible. I think it would really be like proof of telepathy in a really significant way. And I think it would cause a lot of heads to turn if it turned out that this was real. And especially like if we were to speak about it, you know, if we met and connected and it was real, you know, and maybe showed up and talked about it, like that would get a lot of attention in the world. And it might be a crazy firestorm. I have no idea how the media would react to that. It would probably be crazy and they would dig through my past and come up with all sorts of stuff. But also I could see it being like really overwhelmingly positive. You know, she's made videos on her YouTube channel before, has talked about things that matter and are really meaningful to her, and I do the same thing. And if we were to talk about that and really speak to or react to or respond to different events in the world, especially just from like a heart-centered, higher-minded place, I can only see that being like a really overwhelmingly positive thing in the long run. But again, I'm not attached, and I'm not saying this to say like it needs to happen or anything like that. I have all these thoughts and I just wanted to put it out there. One thing that I perceive is that a lot of our values seem to be aligned. Again, she wasn't on my radar before all these experiences happened, but then I started to do some research and I was just amazed by her courage. Like, it's actually insane. Like, with such a platform, with such an audience, so many people following her and really, you know, inspired by the work that she's done, like, she really took it to the next level. She gave some speeches at the United Nations about gender equality and women's rights and helping find the balance between the masculine and the feminine. She launched this He for She campaign, which was like really, really important to help men and women find a more heart-centered interconnectedness between each other. She also did a book club, Our Shared Shelf, which also had many of those themes running through them. And also one time did a rap thing with Lin-Manuel Miranda, which is just super fun. All kinds of great.
We're like half. Like women are like half of the people on earth. And yes, they should have been equal since birth. That means all day, every day, equal pay, every way. Okay, are we really okay?
I was just amazed, you know, and terribly intimidated by her as well. Having this thought of like, look, I mean, I don't know what this connection is or if we'll ever meet, but like, I have looked at myself, I'm like, I'm just some guy on the internet making videos, whatever, you know, I'm not much of anything. And here she is with the attention of the whole world doing these amazing things. I'm like, I don't know what we would have to talk about. And, you know, to the credit on the other side, as time went on and I grew as a person, like there were people who told me talking with me was intimidating and they didn't know what to say. So I could see how I might be a little intimidating too. And if the connection is real, maybe she has felt the same way. It's perfect either way. But you know, like looking her up and finding out all of the things that she said, I'm like, no, there really is some sort of really big cosmic alignment here. Again, don't know what it means, but like all of the stuff that she's talked about and what I stand for, like, I stand, for those who don't know, or you're just tuning in here for the first time, or you haven't seen much of spirit science, part of my core tenets of being is truth, love, and authenticity. And it's my goal to see the world live in peace, wisdom, and harmony. Of course, I'm a very spiritual guy. And it turns out like, you know, she does silent retreats all the time, or at least she did in the past. And she has often spoken about, like there was one clip where she said,
We all have feminine and masculine energies within us. And both forces need to be lifted up, respected. They need to work together in order to make the world go round.
And still though, you know, whether we're connected or not, like she would also have to want to have something to do with me. It's a dance. And I gotta say, she is definitely a much better dancer than I am. So still then, there's a little bit more that I wanna speak about before I wrap this whole thing up. And it actually had to do with this synchronicity, or a series of synchronicities that I've seen. Maybe it's just a coincidence, and the only person that it means something to is me, and maybe that's okay, and maybe I just, you know, I don't need to overreact or overthink this. But it stood out. Like, okay, in 2022, I also ended up going to Burning Man, and I stayed for a minute. Like, I actually went and visited this camp. I had the opportunity to stay there, and I was pulled in another direction, and I ended up not. The camp that I stayed in was actually the camp of one of her former partners, Leo Robinson. And I didn't even recognize him at the time. And it was like weeks later that I was like, I could have asked him to introduce us. And I just didn't even recognize it. Because again, like, I had seen her on the news and there's a story like, Emma Watson's with Leo Robinson. And I like saw like a picture of him one time. But I never put two and two together because again, like, I don't look her up like crazy. And then more recently, there were these other two synchronicities that tie in with Elixir. So for those who don't know, I'm working on a new animated series. It's an entirely different thing from Spirit Science, but it's a story that is so dear to my heart. In fact, it means more to me than Spirit Science does. And that's because I started the story when I was like 14 or 15 years old. And it was inspired by the fact that like I had read Aragon and learned that Christopher Paolini had published this book and written it when he was like 16. And I was like, if he can do it, I can do it too. And I started telling this story, writing this story originally called Exile, about a boy in a world unlike our own. And it's action, fantasy, epic, a little bit of romance. There's all kinds of energies woven in here. And today the story's evolved quite a lot because of everything I've learned with Spirit Science. It was funny because one of these articles that popped up was, a couple weeks or a month ago or something, Emma Watson was seen on the news taking on the role of a coxswain for her university rowing team. And that's like a person at the front of the ship on the rowing boat who's like calling out the, I actually have no idea what it looks like, but I imagine it's like left, right, forward march, breathe, go, 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 or something. I have no idea. It's probably way more graceful than that. But like she took on that role, and the article that came up was Emma Watson takes the helm at Oxford Rowing Regatta. And I was like, what does it mean? And the reason that it stands out to me is because in Elixir, Eric, the main character, his last name is Helm. And I named him that originally in like 2007. But so Emma Watson takes the helm, I was like, and then on top of it, I actually only learned about this from that silly what is the point article. But she said, Watson is from a wealthy background, a scion of the private prep dragon school in Oxford. And I saw that and I was like, wait a second. Eric Helm is in the dragon program of the Crimson Academy in the city of Osik in the story of Elixir. And I'm like, it's too much. What does it mean? It probably doesn't mean anything. Again, it means something to me. And I see that and I go, okay, I was just paying attention and we can move on now. The truth is, there's more connections here with Elixir than meets the eye. This past week, before I even saw this was like, last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, before this story came out, one of my core conversations with my team had to do with the accents and the languages used in the world of Elixir. The whole story is based on, there's these two realms or lands. One is called Osik, and it's a kingdom, and it's very masculine, and they use technology. And the other is called Farron. They have a different way of doing things. It's more magical. And I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just leave it there for now. But really, this kingdom and queendom, they're the two hemispheres of the brain. Like the whole story is a bit of a map of our own body of consciousness, and it's also relative to a lot of the challenges that we have in the world. So the thing is like in Osik, we've got this King Janus, and in the original telling of the story, he had a British accent, and it sounded really good. And so we were experimenting with the voices for him for the new trailer and the new season that we've been working on. We did some British voices and we were like, why would he have a British accent if the rest of everyone has like a Western or American accent? It just doesn't make sense. And then we were thinking about Farron, that these two nations or realms, they've been disconnected and divided for 1,000 years. But they come from the same common origin place. So we're like, they need to speak the same language, but maybe one of them developed with different accents as they went. And we were like, well, what if Farron could have a British accent? And everybody there has a British accent. It actually works because my buddy Daryl is from the UK, and we kind of based the character on him a little bit. It was funny because the character's name is Lyrad, which is just Daryl backwards. But like he's got a British accent, and he did some recordings of some voices, and it turned out really good. And we were like, yeah, this could be a thing.
Maybe we can work something out.
As I just sunk into it, I was like, there's this main character excommunicated princess, thought to be dead, disconnected from her people, but she's trying to make things right. I was just thinking, like, how perfect would it be for Emma to play that role? Like, I think she would be a really, really, really good fit for it. And then at the same time, I'm like, not just for the voice acting. Like, with Emma's experience and her activism work and what she stands for and what she believes in and all the wisdom, all of the experience doing big movie Hollywood storytelling, and she's got like a literary degree, or I don't actually remember all the details, but like she went to school for creative writing, you know, and she's done a lot of art and just very creative woman. I could see her being such a perfect fit to work on Elixir together with. And I think that she would have a lot to add to the people of Farron and how they think and how they do things. And in the telling of the story of like the reconciliation between the left brain and the right brain, I just could see that, you know, the story's gonna be great no matter what. It already is. It's a really beautiful thing. But I just kind of have a feeling like if she was interested to read the script and talk about it, that she would probably have like a lot to add and would make it be even more infinitely meaningful in the world. If I could have a dream come true, that would be one of them, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And maybe I have to, you know, because I'm gonna make this story regardless, and I trust in the natural unfolding of things as they happen, you know? And again, I don't want to force anything. She's very busy. She might not have any interest. She might never even see this video. So on that note, one thing that I'd like to bring in is kind of calling in the 6 degrees of separation. Like, there's this idea in the world now where we are 6 degrees of separation, 6 people away from everyone else in the world. Like, you know someone who knows 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 someone. And I'm like, if this is the case, maybe even if this video only gets a couple hundred views, maybe someone can like know someone who knows someone and can pass it on and could send this to her and just, she could take it in. Maybe if she's interested, she could reach out, and it's okay either way. And I think sort of a closing thought on this whole thing actually was expressed really well by her in the movie The Circle, where she was asked this.
You're most scared of?
Unfulfilled potential.
And I fully agree with that. Like, it's a beautiful sentiment. So I think where I want to close this video then is with this. I imagine she's probably very busy and has tons going on in her world, and I have no idea if she'd have any interest in connecting or getting to know me or anything like that. But just in case she ever does happen upon this video, I wanted to say, you know, to the one who it matters most to, Emma, if you're watching, would you have any interest in, you know, just getting on a call or having some tea, getting to know each other, maybe talk about telling an amazing story together, and really just finding out if there's something actually here?